Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Challenging Church Norms podcast. My name is Pastor Jonathan.
Pastor Jared.
And this is our fourth episode for
Episode 4.
Challenging Church Norms. And we have loved doing this podcast, digging deeper into Scripture and how do we apply these truths of Scripture, that what Jesus said to today.
Yeah.
And we're doing things a little bit differently today because this is our fourth podcast episode, but it's also our church service today since we are not in Da Vinci in person. So we thought, let's try something different. Let's be the church, do something a little different.
Right.
We're doing a podcast episode.
So buckle up.
Buckle up.
Because podcasts are cool. But yeah, it's different. It's a different thing both for church and for the podcast. And I'm excited. You said it perfectly of just how we're doing things a little bit differently today. And it fits into our podcast of Challenging Church Norms.
Yeah.
And it fits into the sermon series that we're in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so Pastor Rob has been in a series called One Thing for a few weeks now. It's been fantastic. And what we're wanting to kind of tackle today is we've covered a lot of topics within what is the church. Last couple of weeks, we've just pulled on some of these themes. So we're pulling it all together, saying, what is that one thing? What are we doing? What is the church? What is that one thing for the church that we know if we're doing it right?
Yeah.
What's at the core of the church that we have to get or we're getting it wrong?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's a myriad of things. Maybe when you're sitting back at home with your family, with friends, you're probably thinking there's probably a lot of things, right? Where if we can get things wrong, it could be a leadership thing. It could be an integrity thing, a moral thing, an ethical thing. But what is that one thing? How can we tackle? Can we even distill it down to one thing?
Well, and that one thing too on the other side could be if you're a church shopper and you're a churchgoer and you're trying to figure out, what one thing at this church, it just needs one thing for me to go there.
Yeah.
What is that one thing as well? That if you're, looking around at a different church or you're visiting a new church, sometimes you go and see, what is that one thing? Do they have that one pastor? What's their worship like? What are their sermons? So it's the other side of that as well. But it is the one thing question today.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to tackle this one.
Yeah.
So,
and what's kind of interesting is we've talked about what is that one thing as it relates to the church. There seems to be some things that maybe we've added, or what are those things that we've added to a church that maybe work well within our culture, where it's like, this is, every culture has things that bring to the table when it comes to church or how to follow Jesus. What are the things that Jesus said?
Yeah.
And the Apostle Paul, what are those functional things that they said are those one thing that we can maybe dispel maybe some myths, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a non-Christian and non-believer and you were welcomed into a house today and you're processing what this looks like, a church shopper, whatever it looks like, we wanted to kind of just cut to the core, dispel some of those myths that maybe you think this thing is what churches always do, when in reality, we need to look at what Jesus said. And maybe it is. Maybe there is that cross section where Jesus said, this is that one thing. So if you're new to Christianity or exploring, this is aimed to kind of dispel some myths, cut to the core. And if you are a Christian, if you do go to church, if you're coming on a regular basis and you've been in it, if you've been following Jesus for a while, we're going to explore what we are all called to do as the church, that one thing we're all called to do. So that's all the setup for us, but we want to dig in. So as we look at this topic of one thing in the church, what's something that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, we've said it before, there's a lot of one things when it comes down to the church. And the one thing, whether it's the sermon series, whatever it could be. But I think today is a perfect example of the one thing, in that we have this idea that church has to be on Sunday. It has to be at 10 a.m. You have to sit in rows. You have to have coffee there. It has to be on a Sunday morning, and it has to be in a building. We are doing none of those things right now. We are online. We are in home groups. If you're hanging out with people, I don't drink coffee. That's my thing.
I do.
You do.
Not this morning.
Not
Celsius this morning.
Celsius. Thank you to our sponsor, Celsius. But I think the one thing that is the challenge today is church does not have to be on Sunday.
Pause for dramatic effect.
Pause for dramatic effect, right? Church doesn't have to be on Sunday. Church doesn't have to be at 10 a.m. either. Whatever we think church should be, it doesn't have to be that. And I think one thing, we're going to say one thing a lot today. One thing that I've learned over the last couple years is it can look different. Church can look different. The way that we do things can look different. I said this in a previous episode, but my mom one time said, just because someone does something different doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? And so just because a church does something little different doesn't mean that they're doing something wrong. And too often we equate our uncomfortableness with difference. And because that's different, it makes me uncomfortable, then it must be wrong. But what I've just seen in scripture is that if you're uncomfortable, that's a good place to be, number one. And number two, that we aren't in charge of how church should be.
That's true. As we explored in like the past podcast, like God is the author of the church, right? Jesus is ushering it. He's building it himself. And it's not something that we can tangibly say, we're controlling this. No, God's controlling it. And we're glad that God's controlling it, right?
Well, Jesus says, he looks at Peter and says, upon this rock, I will build my church.
It's good, Jared.
Right? And so we're not the ones in control. We're just the ones that have been chosen to be used. And some myths, too, that we look at is that, well, church is only for Christians. If you're a non-believer, I can't go to church because it's only for Christians. Or if you are like, oh, I would want to go to church, the other side is, well, I have to be perfect to go to church. I have to have my mess in order. For whatever reason, we've created this myth that if you want to go to church, you have to be in order. And that's just not true. You come to church broken, and here's the thing too, is we're online right now. We're doing church a little different. And for some, that can be uncomfortable. And I want us to allow ourselves to open our minds a little bit. Because I really do feel during our episode today, there's going to be things that can challenge our ideologies and what we think and what we believe. But it's not ill intent. I think it's for us to grow and for us to explore and for us to learn what is the church? What is the true meaning of church? And so
I think you tapped on a few really cool things, Jared, because there's the church myths that for someone who's outside the church saying, I have to be perfect, I have to look a certain way. All those people are those overly righteous people and I'm on the outside of it. There's certainly, there's a lot of human dynamics going on right there. But before that, we were talking about Sundays or sitting in pews or something. There seems to be like a format. It's like, we don't necessarily have to, the format is not the church necessarily. The format is what ushers in truth or, how to actually minister to the congregation. That's what the format, we kind of mold it, we structure it, we systematize it, we build a program that is the best way at getting this truth to the people, right? But that's a format. And there's different congregations, different churches out there that have different formats, right? And you think about Seventh-day Adventist Church, their church is on Saturday, and they say it's on Saturday. So I just think it's really interesting to think about how to blow the doors off of, the walls, so to speak, to say, what does God want to do as the world's changing, where maybe we're married to a format where we need to be married to the mission of the church. So
and it leads me to this question. So I'm going to propose a question. Feel free, pause, talk about it. But the question is, and I've been asked this question, I didn't know how to answer it, is why is the church formatted the way that it is? Why do we sit in pews? Why do we sit in rows and the pastor and the worship team are on stage elevated? Why is it that there has to be coffee on Sunday? So the question is why is the church in North America today formatted a certain way? And I encourage, talk about it. See what is, right? When you take a look at, I've been to a lot of churches and 9 times out of 10, unless it's a a completely different religion, church is kind of structured the same way. You go in, you have your 3 worship songs, you have your announcements, you have your message, and you end with your worship song.
Yeah.
And then you're done.
Yeah.
So why is that? So take a moment, talk about why do you think that church is formatted this way?
Yeah. Well, we hope that inspired some good conversation just to even process, oh yeah, this is why we do this. This is why we do this.
Yeah.
Because there usually are answers to those questions, right? This is why we sit in pews or the people are elevated on stage. We have the sound. We have all this. There's reasons for those things. I just think it's interesting to think about, okay, how do we even challenge, especially as the world, as generations are different, as cultures are different, and we're all in this melting pot together. How do we challenge those things to be like, how do we do more? Maybe explore areas that we're not doing right now at the moment within the format. We talked about this illustration in an earlier podcast about how we can use a format, but really marry the mission of the church, right? I even think the term in business wise, like date the format, marry the mission.
Wow. Yeah.
Just to put it in dating versus marriage terms. But I get this picture of a bottled water, right? Water has been used as a form of life for flourishing on earth for centuries, thousands of years since time began, right? We've always needed water.
Yeah.
But today there's myriads of ways to consume water. You have your tap at home, which sometimes you drink, sometimes you don't, because who knows what's in that.
We're not judging you if you
not
drink tap
judging you.
water.
I drink tap water sometimes.
No, I'm judging you.
But we have different ways that we're consuming water.
Yeah.
And a big part that didn't exist 100 years ago, bottled water.
Plastic bottled water.
Right. And plastic is just all over the oceans or whatever now. But we have this new format. Just go with me for a second. We have this new format of drinking water. And that water bottle is designed in such a way that is easy for me to consume. It can fit in my cup holder in my car.
Yeah.
I can take it around. I can shove it in a backpack. It's not going to spill everywhere if I put it in a backpack. It's all these different things. And so we're still drinking water.
Yeah.
We're still getting the water to the people. But the format, the structure has changed so that we can get it more easily, just to not create obstacles, so we can get the water to the people. So I want us to just process that as far as how do we get to the church? If Jesus describes the church in such a way that is the water, how do we get that to people as easy as possible?
Yeah, and another thing too is like the format will always be changing.
It's true.
Right? And so when you get married to the format instead of the mission, that is when disappointment happens.
Yeah.
Right? That's when we start to disagree on what paint color the walls should be, what type of carpet we have, what type of worship we do, what kind of messages we preach. When we're married to the format instead of marrying the mission, that's when chaos can ensue. And understand formats change.
Yeah.
Right? You have your glacier water, you have your Dasani water, you got your Fiji water. All of those are water,
Mm-hmm.
but they got 3 different bottles, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't change the contents of what it is. And so we have to understand that it will change. It will. And here's the thing, church is not about you, right? Like, it's not just for you, it's for us. And so sometimes, too often, we think, well, church is about me. And because I do this, or I'm this person, then it needs to cater to what I need.
Yeah.
And that's actually farther from the truth. It says this in Acts 2, verse 42 through 47.
This is good, yeah.
And it's talking about the early church and how we started. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved.
Wow.
And so I want to kind of break this down, because we got to understand where this is coming from. Day of Pentecost just happened. Peter just came up and hit a home run message, and it's estimated 3,000 people came to know the Lord and were baptized in the Holy Spirit. So we got to understand, this is where the church is born. This is the idea of church, coming together, meeting together. And saying this, like, not saying that Sunday morning is bad. We're not saying the format of Sunday morning is bad. It makes it easy to meet with people. But if the only time you are in a congregation of people worshiping, praising God, and breaking bread together is Sunday morning, then are you really being the church? And we have to understand, we are the church. And so it's not a once a day thing where we go to church and we go for an hour, because if we go for an hour 15, an hour and a half, oh Lord, like, I don't know, I'm going to be late to my lunch reservation. I'm going to be late to the, like, it's not about us, and it's not about what we can get. It's about being with the Lord, being with Jesus, being together, right? This scripture in Acts, it talks about everyone was filled with awe and wonder, and signs performed by the apostles. They broke bread together. They sold any property or possessions, and gave to the ones who needed things, right? Yeah. They came alongside each other. And here's the biggest thing. They made time for each other. And I think too often we can say, oh, well, I don't have time. I don't got time to go and meet with people. I don't got time to go do this. We all have the same 24 hours, even since the dawn of the time, right? 24 hours is what we've been given. And so if the early church made time to meet together, be together, then I think we also need to start making time and being together. It's really creating that unity. Hebrews 10:24 through 25 says, "And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." I look at that and I go, how many of us are truly meeting together? Are we communing together? Are we spending time together, worshiping the Lord together? Are we praying together? Are we breaking bread together? What does that even look like? Or is it just limited to the Sunday morning? And
Sunday morning's hard, because you're going in there you're hearing a message, you're getting worship, and you're just chatting just in the margins there, right? And so as far as a meeting, we're seeing here, do not neglect to meet together. And I say, okay, we're meeting on Sunday morning, we're at least doing that. But there's so little time, right, for life-on-life stuff, right? That should be something that is kind of a culmination through the week. And we want to talk more about that, of how Sunday is kind of this, not this be-all, end-all, but it's almost like this expression of how the church has been working through the whole week.
Right.
These verses are so powerful. I even wanted to touch on the Hebrews 10 verse that let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. That feels very general, right? It's like love and good works. Like how are you walking about your day and you are dispelling God's love to others, dispensing it to others? How are you doing good works just through your life? And don't neglect to meet together.
Yeah.
That's the structure.
Right.
So I think of like, that's the water, love and good works. The meeting together is the functional thing that we need to just do, get on the calendar, schedule time to be together to make that happen, to be together, love one another, serve one another, and serve outside as well.
Yeah, it's the organization versus organism.
Yeah.
Right. You need both.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't know what we're talking about, episode 3, organization versus organism. Go back, watch it.
Good episode.
It's a great episode. But here's the thing that we have to understand about the church is we are the church. We're not confined to a building. We're not confined to a service time. We're not confined to the format, right? We're not married to the format. We're married to the mission. Mm-hmm. And I love, how are we loving one another? How are we going out and loving one another? How are we showing Jesus to one another? I had, it's the famous saying, you might be the only Bible someone reads. You might be the only interaction that someone has with Jesus. And are we living a life that is following and truly following after him, right? Because that's where it starts. You have an encounter with God and you decide one day, I'm following Jesus.
Yeah. I'm
going to give my life to him. But I think too often we say, I'm giving my life to Jesus, and then we think just going to church is the key. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to show up on Sunday and then do my thing Monday through Saturday. And it's farther from the truth, right? Jesus looks at us and says, if you want to follow me, there is a cost. Pick up your cross daily, right? Follow me. Pick up your cross and follow me. And I don't think we truly understand that in order to follow Jesus, we have to sacrifice stuff.
Yeah.
We have to leave things behind, right? Jesus looks at when he calls Peter, right? And hey, leave what you're doing. Leave your nets. Leave your boats. Follow me. And in that, it's their livelihood.
Sure.
That's what they do, right? Leave everything you know and follow me. That's uncomfortable. That's scary. And if we say, oh, well, I can't do that, then are we truly following Jesus? Are we truly, truly being the church?
And I think the tension there is me trying to get what I need. If me leaving everything behind, saying, okay, Christ, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to follow you, Jesus. I'm going to pick up my cross. The tension is, I don't know if I can do that, right? Yeah. It's like saying, like, I don't know if I have the strength, the capacity to really do that. I'm looking at my own needs instead of Christ is building strength in me. He will strengthen my capacity for those things. Right. It's not just it's like a gap that God can't bring you over. This is included in this, is that God is actually growing in you, sanctifying in you so that you can be missional no matter what day of the week it is, right? I wanted to touch on 4 just quick things based on that Acts 2 passage and kind of how we're talking about the church, first century church. What are some if you were taking notes, just take down like these 4 phrases because they've been really helpful to me just even processing this. What are those things for the church that we can see through Acts and we can see through study of the first century church as well? 4 quick things. 1, there was internal unity within the church. And I know sometimes we can say this, like, we need to be united as a church. Can we pause for a second in Acts? You just mentioned this thing came after the day of Pentecost. There is a merging and certainly tension between all of the factions of people that are now going to follow Jesus. Jew, Gentile, slave, free, men, women, children. And it's this new thing. This is not happening before. They're not religions saying, hey, let's include every sort of culture a part of Christians. This is different. And so I have a question. Do we think it was going to be really unified right off the bat? Probably not. Yeah. You have people of different cultures all in a melting pot together saying, we're just following the way. We're following this Jesus because we're convinced. But I'm sure, of course, there's tension. Paul had to address so much tension there. So internal unity means we have to lean into the core, right?
Yeah.
Because we can agree on the core. Some of the formatting stuff, we do disagree, maybe certain things, but that strong pull towards mission. How can I be Christ to the community? So there's that internal unity there. All right, this is the first one. Second one is outward mission. That means we're not looking, what we just said a second ago, to look at the needs of ourselves, but always how are we showing Christ's love to others? Yeah. It's so focused on that. They not only taught and preached the gospel, but they lived it out. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to say about that, but it also goes into the fourth thing, which is a welcoming fellowship. Fellowship, we see they broke bread, they ate together, they did life together. Yeah. And I would say that welcoming fellowship also leaned into this outward mission because they took in the discarded parts of society, right? They took in the people that certain parts of society in that time would be like, no, these are the people we're discarding. We want them like not a part of what we're doing in the world. They're lame, they're weak, they have no purpose. The Christians were saying, no. This is our community. We're going to break through cultural boundaries here. Yeah. And the fourth thing, confident faith. They were introduced, Christianity was introduced in a world where Christianity was not welcome. Right. Like this loving one another, no matter what, because they were made in the image of God, was different. Yeah. And so they were confident about it, even though there was so much attack and true attack, persecution, killing, torturing. They were confident in what they believed. They didn't say, hey, the people that have critiques of me, they're not the enemy. And if they are the enemy, Jesus said I should pray for them. Yeah. Right. And so there was just such a focus on the mission that they didn't say, oh, this is my right here. That I should have the right to say all this. It's like, well, in this world where the enemy is at work, we have to push through. Yeah. It's not like we're just dealing with people. We're dealing with principalities, with powers, we're not, the person sitting across from you that is mad at you is someone that Christ wants you to win. Yeah. And so there's those four things. I'm just going to say them again: internal unity, outward mission, welcoming fellowship, and confident faith. We'll put that on the screen just because those four were so pivotal in moving it forward. And I think we're still called to that today.
And something that I love about all four of those is it's all about others. Yeah. None of it is saying about you, right? It's not. I heard a pastor say one time, we have to understand that our personal relationship with Jesus is not our personal faith is truly not our faith. It's a faith that's meant to be shared. Yeah. Right. When you fall in love with Jesus and you decide to give your life to him, understanding confident faith, you are giving your life. The early church gave their life to this. Yeah. They were willing to be persecuted. They were willing to die. They were willing to get tortured because they gave their life to that. And they loved Jesus. They believed in it so hard. Everything else was rubbish. Everything else was garbage, right? And so I love these four things of how are we going towards others? Are we putting others before ourselves? Are we truly going out? Are we truly being the Great Commission? Yeah. Going out and baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? Are we going to the nations? Are we going outward? Or are we staying inside? Yeah. Are we allowing fear to cripple us? Are we allowing our anger maybe towards the church to cripple us? Are we allowing our disagreements to cripple us? Are we allowing our own opinions, right? Opinions are not facts, they're opinions. And so are we allowing the opinions that we think things should be done, or how things should be done, or how we think it should be run, or whatever it is, are we allowing our opinions to cripple us in moving the ball down the field, right? It's all about others. That's something that's huge, right? That I learned from the early church is they invited everyone. Doesn't matter what they looked like. Doesn't matter how they acted. Doesn't matter anything. That was a person that was made in the image of God, and that God, here's the thing. Jesus didn't just die for the Christians. He died for everyone.
He died for the sinners.
Exactly. He died for the sinners.
The sinners that were going to turn to him. He died for them. Right. Enemies.
And so when we look and say, oh, well, they're different. Oh, well, they dress different. They talk different. They might smell a little funky. Whatever it may be, you're good.
Thank you.
Whatever it may be, Jesus still died for them.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't accept them, if we're not loving to them, then are we truly lovers of Jesus? Because Jesus loved them enough to die for them. And if we're not even willing enough to invite him into our circle, are we truly loving them, right?
It's convicting.
It's the cost of following Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, right? Luke 9:60, Jesus says to this says to a man as they're passing by him. The man goes, "Hey, I want to follow you. I'll follow you." And Jesus said, "Great, follow me." And then he goes, in so many words, "Well, my father's dying. Let me go bury him first. Then I'll come and follow you."
Right.
And then Jesus says this in verse 60, "Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." That's his dad that we're talking about too, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The cost of following Jesus may be leaving relationships, maybe leaving families, maybe leaving whatever it is that you're holding on to. There's a sacrifice for that. And are we willing to sacrifice, right? If we're not sacrificing to follow Jesus, are we truly following Jesus? And it's convicting to me, because I think if we're not sacrificing our true being to follow Jesus, then are we just giving Jesus our last efforts?
Ooh.
Right? Are we treating church as the last efforts? Well, God, I'm just too busy Monday through Saturday, so I'll just go for an hour. And what we fail to realize is that most of us only go to church on Sunday. We only read the Bible on Sunday. We only worship on Sunday. And that is only an hour of the week.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hours in the week. And we're giving Jesus an hour.
Yeah.
And not giving him our life.
Jared, that is so convicting. I just wanted to add on to that. Just as I've been processing through all of this, we see Christians around the world have different experiences, right? In America, we have this incredible freedom of religion that not everyone has. You know, it is free to be a Christian. A lot of the country was founded on Christian faith, at least within reason, and how we wanted to form a whole government around that and a free people. It's amazing. But I just want to consider, I grew up with this. We all have some idea of this, that maybe it can be easy sometimes to look Christian or to appear like I'm doing the Christian thing. And the thing around that, we have podcasts. We have Christian bookstores, at least maybe we used to. But we have Christian literature. We have Christian music. We have a whole industry of Christian music. This become this cultural thing that's in America that if you were to ask a Christian in like China, you'd be like, I can't totally relate to all of those things. It is its own distinct thing. We have to recognize that, that there is this sort of consumer thing that's happening within Christianity in America because it's free enterprise. It's capitalism. You know, we're building products, right?
And maybe that's the downfall, is that Christianity is free in America. And so because it's free, there's no buy-in. Right? Whereas we see other countries, like you bring up, Christians are still being persecuted in other countries. They have underground churches. They're memorizing pages and pages of the Bible because they can't physically have one. And so I think sometimes because it's free, yes, this amazing thing of it being free for us and we get to worship freely. We get to, right? We're not being persecuted here. If the biggest persecution that we have is that someone disagrees with us, then we've truly missed the point.
It's true. We're not dealing with real persecution.
We're not really
today.
dealing with real persecution. And so I think that's when we have to understand that we've been bought with a price, right? Like we had Jesus laying down his life for us. And now, it's amazing that it's free here. But I think sometimes we take that for granted.
And I would also say, I think it's a great point. We take it for granted. How do we leverage that freedom then? Right? What's my responsibility in leveraging that freedom? Because it's free. And I'll just speak personally. I can curate just the right podcast, just the right music, just the right worship things that get me to that certain place, right? Like I have interest in certain topics that I know I could just consume all of this stuff and I feel good because it's appealing to my heart, what I want. And I just need to be aware that I need to stretch myself sometimes beyond what I want, what's comfortable to me, even though it's like good stuff. It's great stuff, in fact, maybe. But I don't want to leverage my freedom in such a way where I'm conditioning all of the Christian culture to fit my needs.
Yeah.
Because that is, I'm not going to grow in that, right?
Well, I think sometimes we look at Christianity as a consumeristic religion.
Yeah.
Where it's completely the opposite.
True. It's about giving back,
right?
Taking.
Christianity is not about how much you can consume. Christianity is about how much you can give. How much can you love? Can you be Jesus to someone, right? Truly following Jesus will sometimes not make sense to others, even if the others are believers. When you are truly following Jesus, when you are fully sold out for him, and that you have truly given your life to him, sometimes it may not even make sense to the ones that call themselves believers.
And it may not even fit in that Sunday morning box.
And here's the thing.
That format.
Sometimes when someone's truly living a life glorifying, honoring to God, and they are 100% sold out, sometimes that makes other believers uncomfortable.
Sure.
Right? I love this little deep dive is Abel's worship got him killed. King David's worship made him look like a fool, and Mary's jar of perfume offended the apostles.
Wow.
Here's what we have to understand. If our worship and our devotion to Jesus isn't costing us something, then we probably haven't learned what true worship is. Like, we don't really understand. And I think it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing that we can worship freely here.
Yeah.
The curse side of it is we have taken it for granted, and we just think that it's something that we can stick on our chest, like it's a little badge of honor that says, I go to church, I'm a Christian, and that it's now a cool thing. Christianity wasn't meant to be a cool thing. It was meant to be a lifelong journey, right? This is a life change. When Jesus says to repent, repenting is turning 180 degrees and going the absolute opposite direction.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we are not sacrificing something, time, money, energy, resources, whatever it may be, to be with Jesus and to be the true church to someone else, then I think we're missing the point.
It's good.
Right? We haven't truly understood what worship is. We don't truly understand what following Jesus means. Right?
And God works. Have you ever noticed, like, when you're pushed right outside your comfort zone, that's when God's like truly working in a way that you're like, now it's not me anymore. You know what I mean? Because I would naturally be uncomfortable from this, but I'm seeing, you know what? There's fruit behind this. God's working in me in such a way that's challenging me in the moment, maybe.
Right.
But it's accomplishing fruit. It's doing what God is wanting to do today, 2023.
Well, Matthew 6 says this, and I want to touch on this really quick. It says at the end of it, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they are? We don't need to be worrying. Jesus is going to take care of us. God's going to take care of us, right? At the end of it, we all know these two verses in Matthew 6:33 and 34. It says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will have worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. We need to be in the moment.
Yeah.
We need to be in the present, and we need to be with each other. If we continue to isolate, right, which is countercultural for the last 3 years, all we've been hearing from the world is isolate, 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 isolate. And now that's become the cultural norm. If we continue to isolate, then we are continuing to no longer be in relationship with people. And this is just a fact. We need each other.
Yeah.
We need community. We need relationship with one another. Bible is so clear about that. We need to be together. And it doesn't just have to be on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. It can be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's the true church, is being together daily, right? And if we are not together daily, then are we truly being the true church?
Yeah. So in closing here, I wanted to explore what happens when we do this, when we don't neglect meeting and gathering together, when we love people on the outside, when we have that outward mission, right? When we have internal unity, when we look out for the rest of our community, for our church body, and we're being together doing the church. What happens? We already know it changes the world. I mean, first century church was essentially people were like, this function of Jesus followers, these people of the way following Jesus, they're going to be in history and be erased from history just as easy as that. And that's not what happened.
Right.
You had this countercultural movement where people thought they were foolish, and they changed the world. They went to the four corners of the world spreading the gospel, not just in word, certainly in telling the story of Jesus, but being Jesus to others.
Right.
And so we wanted to end today. We're talking a lot about what does it cost you? What's the sacrifice you're making for not just the church body, but what the church does for the outward mission.
Right.
Being a part of the church, what have you sacrificed? What have we sacrificed for others to follow Jesus?
Yeah.
So in following Jesus, what are we giving back? What are we giving up that may be something we're holding on to? It's hard to let go.
Yeah.
What are we holding on to? What are we sacrificing for others for the sake of Jesus?
Right. And so we want you to answer that. So take time right now. Being a part of the church, what have you sacrificed for others to follow Jesus? Take some time, think about it, talk about it, pray about it. It may be a long conversation, but we wanted to close with that question. Thanks for joining us on Challenging Church Norms podcast. This was fun.
Very fun. Very challenging.
It's very challenging. It's very different too. We normally launch our episodes on Mondays. It's Sunday.
It's Sunday.
And we love you, church. Can't wait to see you back in person next week. And have a great rest of your week. Have a great Sunday.
See you guys.